Hello and welcome, everyone. Today is the last Innovation Lunch and Learn session for this series. So we will be taking a break over summer, but we will come back in September with a brand new series. Today we have colleagues from Richmond and Wandsworth who will be telling us a little bit more about their project on tackling rent arrears with digital solutions. I will hand over to them in just a second. But before that, just a quick reminder about the format of today. So we will have the presentation first, and then we'll have Q&A at the end. Obviously, we recognize it's a long presentation, so if there are questions that occur to you in the meantime, please do put the questions in the chat, and we will return to those questions at the end. And the usual, please stay muted if you are not speaking. And unless there are any urgent questions, I think I will stop sharing and hand over to my colleagues from Richmond and Wandsworth for the presentation.
Thank you, Janta. I'll share my screen. Let me know if you can see it.
Yeah. We can see it, yeah.
Should I get started or wait for a few seconds? What do you think?
No, please carry on.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Radhika Karwa, lead data scientist from Insight and Analytics teams at Richmond and Wandsworth. And I'm excited to share with you our approach in tackling the rent arrear using digital solution of texting. First of all, this project is focused on Wandsworth Borough as we don't have any housing stocks for Richmond. On day-to-day basis, we all receive SMS reminder from utility providers, bank, credit card company, prompting us to stay on top of our bills. This inspired us to explore a similar approach for rent arrears. However, when we did research, there was no clear impact evaluation from businesses on texting intervention, how it's helping. There was no clear evaluation. Today, we are going to share the insight we have gained, demonstrate the effectiveness of this approach, and nowadays there are lots of tools available in the market. Our focus was on making the most of what we had, finding ways to save and optimize rather than investing in new tools, ensuring we deliver maximum value with minimal expenditure. Today's outline is we'll discuss why we undertook this project, what's our approach, we'll dive into the methods and intended outcomes Rent's team was expecting out of it. We'll review the key metrics we use to measure the success, followed by the results, and how did we transition to business's usual process. And along the way, I'll cover like the valuable lessons we learned throughout this project. As Jenta mentioned, after this presentation, there will be a Q&A session where I look forward to address any of your questions. So yeah, let's get started. I hand this over to Jose now.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending today's session. My name is José da Silva, and I'm the Business Information Manager for the Wandsworth Council Rent Collection Service. We faced many challenges that underscore the need for this project. Firstly, the COVID-19 pandemic and the ongoing cost of living crisis have put tremendous financial pressure on many tenants, increasing the risk of rent arrears. Traditional rent collection methods rely heavily on paper-based communications and manual processes. We send the first letter 2 weeks after arrears begin, using second-class postage. However, waiting for the tenant to receive the letter means arrears continue to accumulate into the third week. To address this, we needed a cost-effective solution. Low tenant engagement was another critical challenge. Many tenants were not responding to traditional reminders and notices, leading to increased arrears and a strained relationship between tenants and the rent team. Engaging tenants effectively required us to think outside the box and adopt more innovative communication strategies. The purpose of this project is rooted in supporting tenants through difficult times. By doing so, we aim to create a more supportive and efficient system for both tenants and the rent team. Back to you, Radhika.
So what was our approach? As Jose mentioned, through texting, we can reach tenant promptly and efficiently, offering early support to them to avoid any financial hardship. For this project, we took like 5-step approach. The 6th step was added in when we transitioned to business as usual. The first initial step was what's the identifying the target group. We focused on tenant paying rents on weekly basis as that account for majority of our tenant and those who are in arrear. The second step involved was designing the experiment, what type of experiment we are doing. So we chose randomized control experiment so we can accurately measure the impact of SMS. Third was designing the personalized SMS. We held workshop to craft messages that were engaging yet cautious. The goal was to avoid any language that might seem suspicious or include links that could be mistaken as a scam. Because of cybersecurity risk, ensuring that the messages were both effective and trustworthy. There's a trust relationship between the tenant and the council. Fourth step involves sending SMS reminder, which is for which we used GovNotify. So GovNotify platform offers the first 10,000 SMS for free and then charge you like 4 pence per account because our message was pretty long, which got parted into like 2 parts. This made it the most cost effective and viable solution available to us. The fifth step was monitoring and evaluating the impact. We monitored the delivery of the SMS, we monitored the overall impact of this trial. The sixth step was adjust and scale. Based on the result, we scaled the initiative and made necessary adjustment to improve the effectiveness of the trial. This step ensured that the solution was scalable, sustainable, adaptable to the changing needs as we roll this to business as usual. Let's dive into the methodology that we used. As I mentioned before, we used randomized control experiment approach. Our target group was current tenant who are paying rents on weekly basis, which accounts for 90% of the accounts. Then, sorry, yeah, then we had the excluded group. So what we did is after doing the randomization, we excluded people who were already on monthly payment plan or people having direct debit setup, people having standing order setup where we had no contact information and where the account was non-residential account. We excluded those people, did the randomization, and that randomization got sorted into control and treatment group. We make sure that both of these groups were similar in terms of their depth profile, their family structure, their demographic, like age, sex. Yeah, this approach allows to create these two groups. So what happens is, for the treatment group, as soon as the account gets into arrear, that group will receive SMS on Monday morning, while in control group will wait for 2 weeks time frame. A letter will get produced on third week for the tenant. That's the business as usual process. So every Monday morning, the account with arrear or insufficient payment. What I meant from insufficient payment is, if the arrear amount is less than your net rent, you are supposed to receive a message on Monday morning. So we used GovNotify to do this project, and GovNotify provides you a report back like how many messages got successfully delivered, how many messages were failed to get delivered, and that kind of helped us to identify um, the outdated contact information on our records, and we started another project side by side. Clearing our contact information and like literally started a data cleaning exercise side by side. So overall, this trial was run into 2 phases. Each phase ran for 5 weeks. So we ran first phase during mid of November to mid of December. Then we took a break during the Christmas period, and then we ran the second phase during New Year time period. Then we took a week break to scale and adjust the trial, and then we started um, implementing it as a procedure on a day-to-day business as usual processes, which is currently running. Let's talk about the intended outcome rents team expected. Over to you, Jose.
The intent outcome for our tenants: receiving timely reminders can reduce the stress and anxiety associated with forgetting or being late on rent payments. Knowing that they have not only a reminder, but also support from our team can provide peace of mind, helping tenants feel more secure and in control of their financial situation. For tenants with more complex financial situations, our approach ensures that they are not left behind. The early identification and intervention allow us to provide tailored support and address their specific needs. This personalized assistance helps prevent the situation from worsening and promotes long-term financial stability. The intent outcome for our team is to manage workloads by reducing escalations, reduce statutory costs associated with the arrears actions, for example, letters, increase rents and arrears collection, and increase team capacity to focus on more complex cases. Back to you, Radhika.
So, based on the intended outcome rent teams was expecting, we built this impact evaluation metric. So our first metric was what's the SMS status, how many SMS got delivered successfully, how many SMS got failed to deliver. Then tenant engagement. There are multiple ways tenant can contact for support to the rent team. For example, they can communicate via telephone, they can send an email, they can send a letter, they can switch to payment arrangement, they can switch to direct debit setup. That's the way we measure tenants engagement. Change in arrear value. So what was the arrear value before sending the SMS versus after sending the SMS? What was the impact? Statutory collection letter. As Jose mentioned previously, after 2 weeks time period, rents team sent a warning letter one to the tenant. Then give them a period of like a week to pay the rents, and even if they don't clear the debt, they will get a warning letter too, and the letters continues. So one of the impact measure was like, are we reducing those letters? What's the impact look like? The fifth metrics was recovery rate. So what's the percentage of accounts in treatment group was successfully out of arrear, like arrear below £1. In terms of call volume, we have a dedicated queue for rent services. We just wanted to see, because we are running this trial, whether we'll see an increase in those call volume, more pressure, or more incoming calls for the rent team going forward. So yeah, that was one of our metrics. And last but not the least, our staff time. So is there any change in terms of staff time? Did we see any reduction, increment? Yeah, that was a measure. Let's quickly dive into the results of the trial. Okay, so the first thing you can see an image on the right hand side where you'll see a phase 1 and phase 2 result in terms of arrear. You got pre-control post, treatment post. What pre means is what was the arrear amount before starting the trial, and post means what's the arrear amount after receiving the SMS. As you can see a significant reduction in arrear amount when it comes to treatment group. On an average, arrear were lower by £92 in treatment group. When it compares to control group, it was like £45. And this leads to increase in collection by £60,745 over the course of 10-week period from the treatment group only. Recovery rate, statistically significant. We have saw higher percentage of accounts in treatment group who cleared their debt, which was under £1. While doing this trial, we also understood that SMS is not working when the arrear amount is higher. We haven't seen any significant impact on higher arrear amount, which means they need another approach for dealing with those tenants. Call volumes. So while doing this SMS trial, we initially anticipated that okay, SMS intervention might increase call volume as tenant might reach out with questions and concern. However, the opposite occurred. There was no notable decrease in call, like opposite occurred. There was no actually notable increase in the call, but when you compare phase 1 and phase 2, there was no decrease. So phase 1 and phase 2 was quite stable in terms of call volume. So yeah, the calls to agent actually reduced to 22% from 580 calls per week to 465 calls per week. Significantly fewer letters were sent to treatment group. If you look at the graph on the right hand side, you'll see we send warning letter 1, warning letter 2, insufficient payment letter to tenant. If you compare treatment with control group, you'll clearly see the impact, like treatment group are receiving fewer letter when it comparing with the control group who are not receiving the SMS. Along with that, we have seen a significant increase in terms of engagement from the tenant in treatment group, where they're asking for financial support, they're asking to set up a payment plan, they're asking for direct debit setup, or any financial hardship they are facing. They were able to communicate with their rent collection officers. Staff time saved. During the course of this trial, 368 fewer letter was sent in treatment group, which saved like 5.3 hours of two officers' cost, which gave them more time to look into like complex cases and provide support to the tenants wherever needed. These results collectively shows that our SMS intervention not only helped tenant manage their arrear more effectively, but also streamlined our operations, leading to better outcome for both tenant and for the rents team. So now we'll look at the estimated cost and benefit we gained at the end of the trial. As you can observe, the overall cost associated with implementing the SMS intervention was relatively modest compared to the substantial benefit. We'll see increase in rent collection, a reduction in call volume, fewer statutory letters, and lower number of accounts in arrear collectively, demonstrate the positive impact and value of this digital solution. But the real benefit is that officer can focus on offering targeted support to those most vulnerable during the COVID, like during the cost of living crisis, to help tenants sustain their tenancy. Okay, how did we work together on this? Our journey toward agile mindset kind of started accidentally. Initially, we struggled with those agile methodology. However, as we progressed, we organically adopted agile principle. This shift allow us to become more flexible and adaptable in our approach. Iterative process. This project literally worked as it's shown in the figure on the right hand side. This approach involved constant collaboration and continuous improvement. Each cycle of development allow us to refine our methods. Every week we adjusted something based on the feedback and new insight, allowing us to continuously improve our approach. We actively involved with stakeholder, which is like rents team at every stage, ensuring their needs and feedbacks are incorporated. Both team were highly engaged. That was the key factor which led to success of this trial. This proactive approach ensured we had the information and support necessary to overcome any challenges and achieve our goal. Um, Building trust. So yeah, building trust took time, and it involved like openly discussing like our pain points, being willing to disagree and discuss solutions. But throughout consistent delivery and clear communication, we built mutual trust among the team members and the RINS team. Now, how did we transit it to the business as usual? On the right hand side, you can see the uh, clearly crafted SMS we use to send to the tenant. You will see no links there. You'll see personalization of their account number, their correspondence name. Most of the tenant know their rent collection offices. So yeah, this after the trial period during the business as usual process, we continually see the improvement in arrear clearance. Texting prompted more tenant to clear their arrear, not just those who are already intending to pay. It was cost efficient. We see continued reduction in terms of collection letter, giving more time for staff to look into more complex cases which are more down to the statutory route of court cost. It was easier to integrate as a standard procedure. Now as we move to BAU, rent collection service can run this can run this SMS reminder independently without our support. So everything has been coded and packaged well. Rents team can independently run this now. Expansion plan, yes, we do have expansion plan for more digital reminder campaign along this line, targeting like different problems. So, in general, what our day-to-day task looks like while doing the trial and now running to BAU. First step is identification of arrear account, which hardly takes like 5 to 10 minutes for running the script. Once the script is run, they need to upload the output to the GovNotify website, and it takes hardly 5 minutes. Initially, we took the approach like, yeah, okay, we will upload the output every week, but now this is also going to get automated. So yeah, because Rinse team run multiple jobs, so if there is problem with any of the jobs, they need to rerun the experiment again. That's why for the trial period we kept it like that, but for BAU its whole process is going to get automated. um, Message reporting and analysis. So GovNotify provides report for successful and failed message. which then get integrated to our database. And going forward, then we do an impact analysis for all the accounts which received SMS. Um, Lessons learned. Finally, we are here. One of the key lessons we learned was the importance of understanding the specific pain points. By identifying and addressing these earlier on, we were able to tailor our approach. Um, we undertook like iterative approach, which turns out to be invaluable for us. Constantly testing, refining our approach allowed us to make a continuous improvement. The other thing I would suggest is invest more time in understanding the business. This deep understanding helped us align our intervention with the operational realities and objectives of the rents team. So what we see in the back end sometimes doesn't align with what we see in the front end. Maybe like if you try, yeah, so you need to have both of the picture clear. You need to have front end access, you need to have back end access. What you're getting, the output from the back end needs to get reflected on the front end as well, whether you're looking at the correct tables, correct fields. Yeah, we did face a technical challenge. So what happened was there was no technical backend expert on the rent team. So creating the necessary script and navigating through all the present tables in NEC was fell into inside team. This process took longer. While understanding the business, I was going to understand all the tables present in the backend in NAC for doing this trial. It took me months, like 3 to 4 months to develop this script because yeah, it was quite complex. um, so this process took longer than expected, and that left us limited time for doing testing and validation. So initially we had like 2 weeks window for doing the testing and validation just before the start of trial, but I would suggest to have the testing and validation done much prior to that. Because of that, yeah, we did the validation checks a little bit hurry. Due to the time constraint, we had to develop our impact metrics alongside the phase one. I would recommend have your impact metrics ready before the start of the trial as well. Establishing these metrics earlier would have allowed us to track the progress more effectively from the start. I think it took us like 3 to 4 weeks to build the impact metrics. So during the phase one, when we were at week 3, at that time our impact metrics got created. Yeah. And last but not the least is like applying. We learned that different use of language and understanding could lead to miscommunication. So, for example, the rents team had different idea about back end procedure because most of the rents team are focused on front end. Ensuring we speak the same language. For example, if I'm extracting like current balance as of Sunday, both languages needs to be matched. And there are few technical terms like used by rents team, uh, which you might think this seems logical, but they might have other definition for those terms and how it works. So their logic might be different from your logic. So have a clear communication altogether. So yeah, by applying these insights, we will improve future projects for sure and achieve even better outcome. So thank you so much for listening. Um, yeah, if you have any question, drop in the chat, then let us know. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you, Radhika and Jose, for that presentation. Really, really valuable insights and expertise we can see from that work you've conducted. I think we've got a question. So it's time for questions now, but we've got one in the chat already. So Daniel is asking, in the initial phase, what did you find the failure rate was on contacts through gov.notify?
So for the initial phase, 81% of the SMS got delivered, which means 19% of SMS didn't got delivered. And there were few reasons to it. First of all, incorrect phone number, not in terms of like there are maybe somebody gave us like incorrect number which is not working. And second was if they are out of country or if their cell phone is switched off, the SMS wouldn't get delivered. So that 19% account incorrect numbers and switched off mobile phones. So basically a 19% didn't get through.
The gov.uk does give you a breakdown and classes the message that's not been delivered. So even on their website, they give you a breakdown what they mean, because when you look into the reason, it just seems a bit odd, but when you actually look into a bit in more depth, it does make some more sense.
Daniel, you've got your hand up.
Oh, sorry, my headphones are terrible, but I was going to follow up on that and just ask, were you quite kind of direct? If it failed once, it went through and had somebody contact them again, or did it have to fail a number of times?
So can you ask this question one more time? So
Oh,
sorry.
one sec.
No, I think I can help you with that one, Daniel.
Right.
So basically, when they fail, so the system's still picking up those messages. However, we are gathering that information together and provide it to our officers, because the way we export the data, we know which accounts belongs to which officer. So each officer then will try and contact that tenant, not just to try and send a text message, but also to have the communication up to date. So obviously, when you get the wrong contact number, then that's not good to us, right? So obviously, if that is not a home number, because obviously the message is only going out for mobile numbers. So the office can look into a home number. If there is a home number, then the office can contact through the home number. If not, and if needed, then a letter will be then the last option. But that's how we would try contact and update the contact details.
Brilliant. I'm just saying it because when we did something similar, we found that the people who had the highest arrears had the worst contact details. So it was almost as if we'd never been contacting them at all of those stages before you got to sort of like the 20 weeks arrears and stuff like that. Nothing was getting through to them. So it's almost like what you think of as, oh, it's just a few who have not got a number. It really does translate into worse circumstances later on. That was it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel.
So I think you've got two more questions in the chat. So I think Nahid is asking, do you see any other potential applications for this tool? And will you be expanding this beyond rent arrears?
Yeah, we do have more applications in line. First one is promoting direct debit setup. So we have seen patterns of tenant who most of the time paid either on 15th or on 30th when they, I'm assuming when they receive the salary. So we are thinking of promoting this. If they can set up a direct debit, they won't receive SMS nudge on weekly basis. Apart from that, the other application we are thinking is about like if a tenant is already on payment arrangement, if a tenant is on payment arrangement, they don't receive a reminder. But if they breaks their arrangement, we need to follow up on those cases. So just a reminder, if somebody is on payment arrangement, okay, your payment is going to be due. So please be ready for the payment. Those are the two applications we are currently looking at. And apart from this, other teams in our council, like council text team also uses this method for council text reminder. And also temporary accommodation team. Yeah.
Right, I had another follow-up question whilst we wait for others to raise their hand or put their questions in the chat. So a follow-up from me on that to say or to ask, how do you or what approach does the council take in terms of determining which area or what other problem to apply this to?
Sorry, one more time. Can you ask one more time? Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So I was just going to ask, so how do you determine what area to apply this tool next? Do you have some kind of methodology, or is it based on services coming and approaching you now that they've seen the great results of this project?
Okay, so we don't have a methodology in place. We started this as a part, like a multiple part of one trial, but we did reach out to all of our colleagues in SSA, like analyst group, and now services are going to reach out to us whenever they see like, okay, SMS can be implemented in their part of the services.
Right.
So yeah.
No, thank you. Okay, oh, you've got another question from, I think, Mohammed, who's asking, what rent management system or tool do Wandsworth use?
So NEC.
NEC Northgate.
Right. I mean, this is time for everyone to ask questions. So please don't be shy. Put your question in the chat or raise your hand. Okay, I'll ask one more. Sorry, I have lots of questions because your project is absolutely brilliant. So I love the thoroughness and the really thoughtful way in which you've created the treatment groups and the control groups and kind of the metrics and evaluation of the project, because obviously we know it's important to conduct projects, but evaluating its impact is equally important because obviously it helps you with implementing things as part of BAU or using the same approach to address a different problem. I wanted to ask, so on one of the metrics you stated there was 5.3 hours for the two officers who were saved for the two officers who took part in the trial. Was that for each of the officer or was that the total time saved? And I think the other question was, how did the officers use that additional time? I know you mentioned they also looked at kind of the depth of engagement and providing extra support to people. Was that how it was used?
So I'll answer the first part, and then Jose can answer
Yeah.
the second part about the staff. In terms of the cost saving for the staff mentioned in the presentation, it was a staff who were looking at all the letters which goes on Monday morning from Jose team. And there is another staff saving, which I didn't mention in the presentation, but it's more about who is handling the call in the call center. So the staff time was saved there as well because we have seen reduction in the call volume. Along with that, we have seen the time got saved from, like, it's helping staff from Jose team to look at more complex cases. Maybe Jose can help elaborate more on how the staff is utilizing those time.
Yeah, I mean, so basically every letter we send out, my team tends to review the letters. Obviously, one of the main reasons is we try to avoid some incorrect data to send out, and then someone, have a letter with a massive, rent arrears and say what's going on. Obviously, it's equally important to mention that obviously we have jobs running overnight from Monday morning, early hours in the morning. So obviously, if one of those jobs fails, we will not send the SMS because we need to ensure that all the data is correct. Because otherwise, you send an incorrect message, right? So that's the bit. So my team tends to look into all those letters to make sure that everything is correct, basically, right? So that is time consuming because we do send weekly a lot of letters, as you probably imagine. So by having this functionality in, that saves my team to focus on other issues where we cover within NEC support, if you know what I mean. So things not working or arrangements not working, etc. So basically, that's what it is. Now, getting, I think, to the second part of your question, where how the officers do with that additional time. Now, there's a crucial thing with SMS methods we notice is it creates also more engagement. The engagement also allow our officers to perhaps advise the tenants to maybe to set up a direct debit or a standing order, because obviously that it's crucial to maintain the rent arrears. But also by having that free time, they can focus onto accounts where it's not it's not part of the SS project, but where the arrears are quite high, and then they have more times to focus on those tenants. And obviously, if they are so busy in dealing with everything else, it's very hard to focus on those cases.
Thank you. That makes complete sense. Daniel, you've got your hand up.
I was going to ask, just on the interaction with tenants, are you using the function on GovNotify that lets them respond to text messages, or are you using the one that just lets you send them?
So the text message, you are able to reply to the text message. So as Radhika mentioned before, every tenant knows who their officers are, because obviously the rent collection officers are, because it's on their letters anyway. And obviously, unfortunately, if it's a tenant that has a lot of arrears, then the communication is quite often. So they will know. We have a system, our phones that we use is net call. So if the tenant contacts that officer and the officer for some reason, let's say, is on holiday, that phone call then it gets passed to another officer. So there is always contact. And obviously with NEC, you have always all the details of the account. So the engagement. So because not replying to a text message, that means the engagement gets increased. Now, we tend to send our message around lunchtime, at 1 o'clock. The reason why we notice that is because we want the tenant to engage. Now, obviously, if you are working 9 to 5 as an example, and if you get a text message and your working hours, then you're going to come 5 o'clock when you try to contact us. By then, no office is available. So now you're losing that timeline with the tenants. So the idea is trying to send a message around lunchtime, and hopefully if someone around the lunch hour, and they'll say, oh, okay, let me contact, see what's going on. And that can do it. Or people just say, oh yeah, this is basically like a nudge, say, oh yeah, I need to pay my rent, and they just make a payment. So basically that, Daniel.
Thank you for that. I think there's another question from Desmond, who's asking, could you use the tool as sort of a reminder for tenants that are not in arrears? Jose, I think that's what you're alluding to. Is that correct? Or
I mean, the idea of this project is to be proactive and to ensure that tenants are not going to arrears. Obviously, the idea is trying to be one step ahead, if I may use and avoid those tenants to go into arrears. And obviously also, saves costs on letters, footprint, etc., etc. Now, if you want to send reminders to tenants that are not in arrears, I think we could use the same system. Obviously, the filtration would have to be different, the way that the system would have to pick up, but it's not impossible. It could be done as well. If that's Desmond, that's what I was asking.
Thank you. Desmond, does that answer your question?
I hope it did.
I hope so. Daniel.
I'm going to be nosy because we do something similar. It's basically a question about, we do have some terrible contact details, which is why I keep asking about it. Do you tend to include any personal information on the text messages, like the name or the arrears amount, or is it sort of impersonal, just saying, we notice you've got arrears in your account, please pay at the earliest convenience?
Yeah, we do include the name, but the account number, we use the 4 digits, I believe. So we use **** and the 4 digits or 3 digits, I can't remember now off the top of my head. We didn't want to disclose that. And at first, we've done some try and errors with just as a testing, what would be the best. And we decided that including the amount might actually work the other way around. It might actually avoid engagement. If you know what I mean, people say, oh, I own £1,000 or something, I don't want to make a phone call. So by not including that, we found that would be probably the best way, and to encourage people to contact us back.
Right.
Or pay the rent, basically.
Thanks.
One of the presentation slides that Radhika was explaining, you actually got a template of the text message we sent, Daniel. Yep. That's exactly that. Obviously, that's the side where it doesn't look well with the names, but yeah.
Yeah, this is
That's
template.
one.
Yeah. We are going to circulate these slides after this session. So yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, we found that we didn't have many updates to our phone numbers because that we had the cyber attack. So we found out that maybe 30% of our numbers were failing on Notify because it just weren't being updated. So you can imagine sending out anything personalized was a bit, don't know if you can do that because it's not going to get the right people.
Yeah, and obviously too much data like GDPR stuff like that, you need to be always very careful, I think. But we found that better way. I mean, we had a few templates, Daniel, if I'm going to be honest with you, and with time we actually thought, we included the direct debit bit towards the end because we just believe that perhaps by putting that on the text message, we're encouraging people to set up a direct debit or standing order, which is always a plus. So I think with time you start looking a bit more and a bit more and a bit more, and you tend to tweak where you think you need tweaking.
Thank you. Please can we open it to others as well who might have questions? Otherwise, I'll continue to ask mine, but may not be. It's not my show. Okay, I will continue to ask my questions. So I don't know if you're able to say, but it was really quite interesting that you were saying that you were saying that something about the effectiveness of this methodology and approach for higher, rental arrears. Can you say a bit more about what you consider high to be? Again, not precise, but is it thousands? Is it tens of thousands?
Okay. So for us, this method works on weekly basis. So whatever the weekly rent of the tenant, based on that, we designed this whole project. So our range was like so in terms of recovery, if they owe less than £1, then it's a great success. Then we had another range who owed between £1 to £100, £100 to £200, and then we got like 200 plus in terms of their weekly rent, not a monthly rent, weekly rent. We have seen this less effective. I would say like control and treatment were neck to neck when the amount was more than £200. Yeah.
So that's where a different approach, Jose, you were saying that time savings is used for accounts of that kind of order of magnitude.
Spot on. And also is important just to add it to be to what Radhika just said. Also, keep in mind you have some tenants that make monthly payments. They don't have a direct debit or standing orders, but they make a monthly payment. And a lot of people do is, let's say for example they pay £1,000 and they rent either £1,000 on a calendar month, but they might have already some arrears. So because they're making their payments the next week, because we charge it weekly, if you see what I mean, you can make a monthly payment, but we charge per week. So that means if you make £1,000, but if you already got some sort of arrears, you should always be on 1 month ahead, if it makes any sense, in advance, so you never fall in arrears. So if you make £1,000 and next week it's charging 150 quid, for example, you are already in arrears. So this is where also the SMS will kick in, just alerting you, giving you a nudge, look, you now becoming in arrears. So sometimes what it does, people realize, oh, okay, I made a payment, but I'm still in arrears, so let me make that additional payment to bring my account into credit. Does it make sense? So that's also helps out on the circumstances. Now, just be aware that obviously direct debit and standing orders accounts are not including our now SMS project. But like I said, a lot of people do make payments, monthly payments, with payment cards or coming to the council to make the payment, that they don't want to set up a direct debit or a standing order. So that will be affected by this project.
Understood. Thank you. Last call for questions from participants.
Silence is so...
Your presentation was impressive. No, thank you so much for sharing that. In that case, I think we'll go to a close unless anyone has any kind of final thoughts to share. But yeah, just to say thank you very much, Radhika and Jose. Brilliant project, and we will share the slides and the recording with everyone in the call. So thank you very much to everyone as well who is here and was able to join us and to ask those really thoughtful questions. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.